We've all probably seen endoscopy cameras, but have you ever seen an artery camera? Scientists have invented a snake-like probe that goes inside your arteries and snakes around your brain and provides images live to the doctors so that they can find exactly where, when, and what about brain aneurysms, clots, and other venous disorders. I'm going to go ahead and skip to the part where this technology is actually working here in the article. This is what the doctor would see. So they would see on the left-hand side the actual vein network that it's going through, the interior of the arteries in the middle, and then a little bit more information about the shape of the vein on the right-hand side. It's actually extremely impressive, and this is live. It is described by the scientist who created it as a tiny snake-like device that winds its way through the intricate maze of arteries using spirals of light, captures high-resolution images from the inside out, provides an unprecedented level of structural detail that enhances the ability of clinicians to troubleshoot implant placement and better manage disease complications. So let's go ahead and move down to how it works. This uses a new type, well, not a new, a relatively new type of imaging called optical coherence tomography, which is something that we already use to take pictures of back of people's eyeballs and things like that. But in order to get this inside of a vein, what they had to do is take that technology and make it way more flexible and controllable, because normally it's a hard piece of metal. This has to be very soft and flexible so as to not, rip people's brains out, which would be bad. But the way this works is it relies on a backscattering of near-infrared light to create cross-sectional images with the micrometer scale spatial resolution. And as they mention here, fiber optic technology for this stuff is usually really rigid, so what they had to put all of their time in to doing was making it soft, and all of this was done at the University of Massachusetts. And I think this is super cool because it doesn't just help people with aneurysms, it helps people with strokes, blood clots, various types of cancers, traumatic brain injuries. And it doesn't just have to be used in the brain, you can use it anywhere in the body. So this is like reinventing the MRI or CT scan for veins. This is going to be extremely impactful in the future. Let's start off today by covering a groundbreaking study which reveals the impact of genetics and IQ scores over time, and this is not going to go the way that you think it is. This is absolutely one of those nature versus nurture articles to determine whether our intelligence and personality is determined by our genetics or by our environment. And this was a twin study for identical twins that have 100% of their DNA in common. They went for, let's see, what do they call them? Monozygotic twins who share 100% of their genetic material. They also studied some other twins, but we're going to mostly focus on these truly identical ones. And what they wanted to study is they wanted to study twins that were reared apart or raised in different environments, twins that had been separated from birth. And we'll skip a whole lot of math here. And what scientists found, both in China and in the Netherlands, so that we have a little geographic difference here, is an increase in IQ similarity with time, meaning that as the twins got older, their intelligence quotient became more similar to one another. So what they essentially discovered with this study is that while intelligence levels can change over time, the direction and extent of these changes are often influenced by genetic factors. Basically, a good environment is more impactful on the person in their earlier phase of development, but as they get older, genetics sort of take over and have a much bigger impact. This is not to say that two intelligence scores guaranteed merge to the same one over time, but rather the difference between them is lesser. If a child is raised in a terrible environment, they'll have a lower IQ compared to somebody raised by scientists. But as they approach 50 or 60, that difference may actually not be so much. So in the battle of nature versus nurture, as we mentioned in the beginning, nature definitely has a bigger impact than nurture, at least according to this interesting study. Big tech firms need to generate $600 billion in annual revenue to justify AI hardware expenditures, at least according to a business analyst at Sequoia Capital that specializes in studying AI infrastructure. And $600 billion is a lot of money. For reference, Google search, the most popular search engine on the planet, generates about $175 billion of revenue every year. So in order for AI to become profitable, companies collectively have to build something as valuable as about 3 Google searches. Actually, a little bit more, about 3.5 different Google searches. So that's kind of impressive. We basically need to build 3 more websites with the size and influence of Google, for current AI technology to become profitable. Of course, we have the CEO of NVIDIA in front of one of these giant AI data centers, but let's talk about how they arrived at this conclusion. So this was done by an analyst at Sequoia Capital named David Kahn, who noted last September that there was a very significant gap between the revenue expectations implied by the AI infrastructure build-out and the actual revenue growth in the ecosystem. So he's estimating, we start with a premise that for every $1 a company spends on a GPU, they'll need about $1 for that year on energy costs to run the GPU in a data center. In Q4 2023, NVIDIA's data center run rate was forecast at about $50 billion. So you had to double that and then you get to $100 billion. Then multiply that number by 2 again to reflect the 50% gross margin needed for the end user of the GPU, and then another $200 billion on top for the lifetime revenue needed to be generated by these GPUs to pay back the upfront capital investment. And then we're at about $600 billion for the payback point specifically. So this is kind of insane when you think about it. The end of AI might not be regulation. It might not be technological limitations or failures. It might be simple economics. Now, the analyst does point out that AI chips are becoming more efficient, and they're talking about the NVIDIA B100 chips, which have 2.5 times better performance, only 25% the cost, and how technology will improve over time. So these estimates might get updated as we get better with the technology, but as of right now, it's looking rough, and it does look like a sort of big tech special. They have a solution looking for a problem, or they are going to get funding to build out some sort of insane infrastructure, some sort of massive, outrageous thing that's built around tremendous amounts of growth in the future that may or may not happen. And it kind of reminds me of the 90s tech bubble a little bit. Let's just hope that they're wrong, because that's a lot of money to waste on AI if it goes bust. I've got some good news coming out of the UK today, as their test program on taxing sugary sweets and drinks has resulted in sugar consumption being cut in half for children and for adults, which is extremely successful. And I know for our American viewers, you'll probably find that to be sort of anti-freedom, to say that I can eat and drink whatever I want. I don't want the government taxing my food and telling me what to eat. But this is also America, where people drink Route 44 Ocean Spray drinks from Sonic, which you might notice are actually so big. The bottom of the drink is shaped like a regular cup, because the top of the drink is too big to fit in any cup holder in any car ever, or the fact that we're sitting at about 10% of our population having diabetes. Most of those are due to excess sugar intake. The rest of the world isn't doing tremendously better. And if you think diabetes is a joke because everybody has it, apparently you don't care about eye disease, kidney failure, stroke, joint pain, losing your toes, nerve damage, or heart damage. It's actually a very nasty disease. And again, a huge chunk of it comes from just consuming too much sugar, I say, as I ate a sweet bowl of cereal for breakfast. But UK passed a law to tax sugar in 2016. The law went into effect in 2018, and it added a tax on top of sugary drinks and snacks. And the results were that it showed the daily sugar intake for children fell by about 4.8 grams, and for adults for about 10 grams. Total dietary free sugars in children was about 70 grams at the beginning of the study and 45 by the end. For adults, it was about 60, and it also fell to about 45 for adults, so still a significant decrease. And this is a, as they would say, a tangible decrease. The rest would just cover all of this. If you're cutting your sugar intake by 20, 30, 40, 50%, you're way, way, way less likely to have to deal with diabetes, which saves everybody money in the long run on insurance. It makes for a healthier society, a happier society. And as much as I love sugars, I'm actually going to go buy a dessert later tonight for myself, but I have to pick a small one because I know that large amounts of sugar will absolutely kill me. It's like one of the most dangerous things about living in the Western world is that in some cases, these drinks with 80 grams of sugar per bottle might be cheaper than water.